Some have already lost faith in Bill O'Brien. I think if BC actually puts more money into this program and supports him, he could get this program going in the right direction in the future.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, details, and analysis on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today's episode, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to give a little basketball news. On Friday, some huge news for Earl Grant and the basketball program. I'll explain what that is. What is BC going to do at quarterback? Do they stick with Dylan Lonergan or move forward? I'll give you my thoughts on where that should look. And people are losing faith in Bill O'Brien. Is that too early or is it justified? I'll give you my thoughts right now. Now let's kick that off. You go on social media right now, and rightfully so, things are pretty negative. Very negative. You know, between the tweets I get, the BC should go to the Patriot League and you got to fire Bill O'Brien and this program is toast. I get it. I get the frustration. It feels like we're on a hamster wheel and things are going around in circles that we've already dealt with. Some people are advocating that Bill O'Brien, and I saw, CBS Sports already had Bill O'Brien on the hot seat. And other folks want him gone. So should BC already start considering this? I don't think so yet. Here's why. We've always known deep in your heart that this program has to have a bit of a rebuild. Jeff Hafley left the program kind of bare. O'Brien is going to have to get his guys in. He really had one recruiting class so far. These are all Jeff Hafley guys minus some transfers and a few others that he's brought in. So he needs a little bit more time here. But I think even if you think that he isn't the answer, that he's not the right guy, I really feel, if you moved on from a coach like this, it's just spinning that hamster wheel more because the bigger issue has nothing to do with the coach. The bigger issue has to do with the institution. Boston College, if they want to win, and they want to support the fans and the players and the coaches that support this program and play for this program, need to wake up. They need to support the work of these coaches, the work of these players, and pay them and support them through resources that other programs get. BC has fallen behind this race. O'Brien came in, got a boost in some areas, but it still feels like BC is still behind the eight ball. Whether it's recruiting, NIL or NIL for transfers or rev sharing, whatever. We don't even know what the rev sharing model looks like because no one will talk about it. You need to get BC up to the standard of what other programs are doing. And it doesn't feel like that's the case. So yeah, you could go fire Bill O'Brien, go find someone else who's going to come in here. And what's going to happen? It's the same thing that happens to every coach at BC. You're fighting off a lion with one arm tied behind your back. The school needs to support them. That's why yesterday and for a couple episodes now, I've been crowing that Father Jack better be that solution for your program or we're in trouble. You cannot afford to have another Father Leahy who is so lax in terms of the support he gives his programs. You need somebody in here that's saying, okay, well, we're not going to be Clemson. We're not going to be Miami in terms of the money that we give out. But there's no reason BC should be so far behind in every other school. And they need to get that up. And that means for everything. As I said, NIL. They need, as Mitch Wolf, the Joker, said yesterday on our show, and if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. You need more staff members. You have Matt Turn coaching special teams and safeties. He should just be doing one. You need other names out, other people out there. Look at the staffs at some of these other schools. And I'm not even talking about like Alabama and Georgia. They're in a whole other galaxy than BC. I'm just talking any school in general. They have bigger staffs. It would be so beneficial for whoever's the coach, if it's Bill O'Brien, to have guys here. Look how beneficial it was last year when you had Doug Marrone here and you had other assistants that were here to help out. It's big. To get more of those kind of guys here would be a big boost to everything that they're doing. So I put this more on the school than on Bill. Now, there's parts of his game that, yeah, I need to see more out of. Like, I'm really, really interested to see what kind of adjustments he makes. On Saturday's press conference, he said, we got to look at everything. If we go, we got to look at everything from the top to the bottom. And he's dead on right there. I'm just worried that when we see Clemson come in, we're just going to see this, if we see the same kind of thing, what changes have been made? And I get it. There's certain things that he can't change. Like you lose Amari Jackson and you lose Syer Torrance, you're starting 2 corners along with Quan Williams and along with Quintavious Hutchins and along with Bam Crouch. That's a lot. That's a lot of big losses and things like that. You can't change, but you can't keep doing what you just did last weekend. That is a big problem. And you're playing a very good Clemson team this week. So his adjustments are something I'm going to want to watch for, because that's I think a bigger signal of what kind of coach he'll be for BC when things get tough like this. We saw adjustments last year. He did it when Castellanos was falling apart. Castellanos became completely ineffective in his system, so he went to Grayson James, and what happens? He becomes bowl eligible. I'm not saying this year that anything BC is going to do is going to get them back to that point. I feel like the season's already completely lost. But there's still chances to make sure that this is not a 1-9 year. And so that piece, I think he can control. I think that there's stuff in there that he can do. But the bigger issue, is he the right head coach issue, is more on the higher ups and how they view athletics at BC. I've heard nothing. Everything I've heard about Father Jack is he's so pro athletics. He has to have a more progressive view on how to spend and how to support these teams. If you want your coach to do better than Steve Adazio, than Jeff Hafley, than Frank Spaziani, and not run out at the first sign of stress because you're not getting the support, or distress because you're not getting the support you need, the school has to help. The school needs to take a more proactive spot there. And that has been the albatross over the necks of some of these guys for the last 10, 15 years. As college football has changed, BC hasn't. Now they're not like completely averse to doing this stuff. There's schools out there. I look at Stanford, for instance, that is way behind the 8 ball. Northwestern struggles at times. BC is more progressive in terms of like how they deal with things than that. But they should be more. They really should. If you got a school like Notre Dame doing what they do, BC should be able to support their program in a higher level. Not Notre Dame level. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you should be up there with your peer schools. And I think BC should be able to do that. So again, yeah, you can yell and scream about all you want that you want Bill O'Brien fired. But the next guy you're going to bring in, if the school's not supporting him, they're going to have the same exact problem. So it's a more of this right now to me. This whole issue that we see with BC at 1-4 is just screaming that, there's a bigger financial support issue of this program that needs to be fixed. So that they you would hope that like any other NFL team, like at the end of the season, like if you had the NIL money, O'Brien knows what the issues are. We all know it. You look at the defensive line, they can't get pressure. It would be nice if they had money to go out there and get somebody who could fill in that spot. And I'm not asking to get, the next Harold Landry out there. Just get someone who can get pressure. You can find those guys. But they don't have I feel like the money isn't there. And that needs to change. And, Father Jack starting soon, so hopefully that will be the answer. Now, in our second segment, let's go back to the field. Trevor Haas of the Boston Globe asked a question, and there was answers to it, and it was asking who should be the quarterback. I'll explain my thoughts in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Pick, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You can pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. My favorite part also is just adding stacks. So if you want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. Sometimes you can't do that on those sites. So download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider here. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. And if you have not done so already, hit that like and subscribe button. And as I said, if you want a fun video episode, go check out yesterday's on YouTube. If you've already watched, you already know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, you need to go check it out. It's well worth your time. Now, Dylan Lonergan, his progression has really hit a rut. From the guy that we saw, obviously it's Fordham, but he looked fantastic for most of the MSU game. He has some ruts there too, but you saw him do a little bit against Stanford, but then against Cal, he struggled. And against Michigan State, he just wasn't very good. He had a really, really rough game. So now that BC sits at 1-4, of course, the question of who's the starting quarterback, who should be the starting quarterback moving forward. Now, Mitch and I on Saturday at different points of the game said, you got to put Grayson James in because Dylan's getting killed out there. And I stand by that. But that wasn't to say that he should be replaced for good by Grayson James. Because at this point, I think that Dylan Lonergan should be your starter moving forward for the foreseeable future still. Because if you have put all of your investment in him being your next starting quarterback, you know that he was going to have a few lumps. And he's hit those ruts. Now is the time to see if he can bust himself out of that. If he continues for 3 or 4 more games looking completely lost and just really struggling out there, then maybe you make the change. But for now, you need to let him go out there and try to figure some of this stuff out. You know, if the coaches have taught him the message of what he needs to do and how to make his reads and what he needs to be seeing out there, this is the time where things should start to slow down. Now, against Clemson, it's probably going to go a lot faster for him, unfortunately, because that defense is nasty. But, you know, he should play. And if things get out of hand, you bring in Shaker Rising or Grayson James. But I think it's throwing the baby out with the bathwater, really, if you just bench him now. Because what have you learned? What have you picked up about Dylan Lonergan if you just skip off from him right now? You're not even getting a chance to see his resilience, what he can do. Look at how many quarterbacks in the NFL, you know, people just gave up on. And some of them took a couple years for them to give up on. But, like, look at Mac Jones right now. I'm a Pats fan. He looked terrible for, a year and a half for the Pats. And he looks great right now with the 49ers because another team gave him some time to figure it out. It's a little different for Lonergan. And it's obviously a shorter span, but that's what I'm getting at. He's only started 5 games. You can't just give up on him when you've seen flashes of what he can do. And I think there's other factors that are making him less effective. The offensive line looked horrible against Pitt. And I'm really worried what they're going to look like against Clemson. Unless they make some changes. Again, Bill said he's going to make some changes out there. Offensive line would be a great place to start because they did not look good. And I still think that Logan Taylor's a better tackle and, you know, put Robert Smith back out there. Again, against Clemson, that might be scary. I have my thoughts there, but that's one piece. And the play calling. The play calling is, you know, I'm not an offensive coordinator. I don't call plays, so I can't tell you the ins and outs of what things are looking at. But to me, it looks a lot like very dink and dunk right now, where he's just throwing tons of small passes and faster defenses are just killing them. Like, if you're going to keep throwing 3-yard outs to Turbo Richard or even to like Lewis Bond, these defenses are just waiting and swarming to the ball. It's not working. You got to be able to figure some more things out there. And finally, like, the one piece that really bothered me about the Pitt game was there was times where the wide receivers didn't look interested going after it. There was a deep pass to Reed Harris that I think if he jumped or dove, he would have caught, and he just didn't even go for it. That was one pass I saw, but that wasn't on him, just him. The whole team looked like they were tuned out at different points, but that doesn't help Dylan either. So all those pieces, whether it's the play calling, whether it's the blocking, they need to run. They need to be able to run the football, and whatever the heck happened with Turbo Richard in that Pitt game can't happen again, because you had a running back who ran for 170 yards the week before and ran 3 times in the first half. I don't understand that. They decided to run Bo McCormick, a true freshman, against that defense, and it was a nightmare. Bo McCormick has his flashes, but he did not look like the guy that you should have been going with. Jordan McDonald, who did well against Pitt last year, had a couple decent runs down the stretch. I mean, again, it was in garbage time, but it should have been some of those guys. But all that kind of conversation is what is killing Dylan Lonergan. He doesn't have a run game, and you're playing good defenses. You're playing Pitt. You're playing Clemson. What is the worst thing that could happen to BC? It's for them to become one-dimensional, because good defenses like Tom Allen's Clemson's defense or Pat Narduzzi's Pitt defense, they lick their chops because it makes their jobs a million times easier when you don't have one part of your offense, when you can't run the football and you're forced to throw it. That was just serving up dinner on a plate for them last week. And if they do it again this week, Clemson's going to make their life a living heck. So all of those factors, I think, don't do Lonergan any favor, and I don't think would do any of the other quarterbacks. Like Grayson James, obviously he has more experience, but he struggled. And yes, Shaker Rising threw an incredible pass to Kalen Chudzinski. That was a great play. Obviously an absolutely meaningless time. But remember, Shaker missed the entire summer camp. He didn't. I went to practice from the beginning to the end, and I think he might have practiced at the very last practice. I didn't see him at all. Other than that, he was out the entire summer. He is a freshman. He has a lot of talent, but you would just be taking 2 steps backwards if you just went out and threw him out there, unless you gave Lonergan a chance. If Lonergan goes out there and goes against UConn and does nothing, then you know what? Maybe it's the chance to try something else. But he still needs a few more opportunities here. And I wish it was anyone but Clemson. I feel like, playing against Louisville, playing against UConn, playing against anyone but Clemson and maybe Notre Dame would be a nice way for him to try to figure a few things out. But unfortunately for Lonergan, it just gets from hard to harder when he goes to this one. So I think he still should be the answer. I just think and O'Brien has said it himself, like they need to make things better, easier around him, and work on making the game plan work for what Lonergan can do. And I think that's going to be a major factor for them. Now, let's switch sports. In a moment, let's talk about basketball, who landed the biggest recruit in 7 years. I'll explain who that is in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home. Whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your favorite fan base, or the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhoods businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. I love Shake Shack over in Chestnut Hill. It has amazing burgers. Give me one of those. If I'm going to watch it on my couch, give me a nice chocolate shake to go with it and some fries. I'm a happy podcaster. Now, Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if you hit, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel. I love using it for baseball during the playoffs. With the Yankees, are they going to start winning when they get home? You can get the money line. You can add an Aaron Judge prop bet home run. You can do Max Fried strikeouts if he's pitching. You got all sorts of different options to create your own custom parlays, and it's so easy. If you've never tried it, you should check it out. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get yourself started. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. We're wrapping things up here at Locked On Boston College. And hopefully we'll have a Clemson broadcaster on. I think we're going to try to, I'm hoping to get Locked On Clemson, but I have to reach out to them. And we'll have Mitch on at the end of the week without his makeup on this time to talk about our predictions and what we expect on Saturday. Now, basketball. Basketball is about a month away to start. And, I think one thing that came up that I don't think I even addressed was that BC added a new foreign player over the last couple of weeks that is actually available to play now. He's a 6'6" guard, and 6'6" wing named Marko Radunovic from, where is he from? He is from Montenegro. And, he's a 6'6" guard, added more depth. He's going to be a freshman. I think he's older, though. He had a good summer, so he's an addition. He's on campus now. They just announced his signing. I was surprised that he's already ready to go, but that's not the point of this. The point I wanted to bring up was that BC landed a 2026 four-star recruit, number 90 in the country, and BC's highest rated recruit in over 7 years. This is Trey Beamer out of IMG Academy, and he picked BC over offers from Maryland, Mississippi State, South Florida, and a whole other host of schools. Talk about, he was in the IYBL league, averaging over 20 points per game. Really exciting that BC can land, even with the struggles that Earl Grant has had, that BC can land a recruit at this caliber. Now, it was all Steve Smith, the assistant coach, in his when Beamer announced his commitment. It was his relationship with Smith, who's also from Florida, as a reason why. So credit to Grant for helping us close this deal. There's a really cool picture of Earl Grant with Beamer. But also credit to Grant for grabbing Steve Smith, because he seems like a really good recruiter. Now, this is not the only four-star that BC is looking at for basketball. There's a forward named Alex Agbuano, who is another four-star, who is number 75 nationally, it basically sounds like it's down to NC State and BC, with PC kind of floating around in the back. If BC can land Beamer, they've already landed him, and Agbuano, that would give BC 2 top 100 recruits, I think, for the first time ever. And at the time, if that commitment happens, BC would have the 15th ranked recruiting class in the country. First of all, that would be incredible. Second of all, that it's not Agbuano, get to see what happens there, but that would be an incredible get for Earl Grant. Now, the big question, the big thing to think about on this, and I know a lot of you are skeptical, is what happens if Earl Grant tanks out again? What if BC crashes out and doesn't do well, and then they move on from Earl Grant? That's a fair question to think about. I honestly don't know what these recruits would do. They probably would move on, but we have to wait to see what happens. BC basketball is practicing. They're still stressing that they're a scrappy team that's going to be a tough out. We'll wait and see what happens. But for now, recruiting looks good. They're making more splashes than football right now in recruiting. So congratulations to Earl Grant and his group on that one. As I said, I'm going to try to do an episode later this week with Clemson. We'll have talk about all this game. We'll get into Clemson week. They're a 14-point underdog, which seems actually kind of low. for that game, and we'll get into everything here on Locked On BC. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. I'm on everything. And thank you all who have made us your first listen every single day. I'll see you guys all again soon. This is AJ Black for Locked On Boston College, your team every day.